Go Pizza presents SCP. The Steve Dangle Podcast with your hosts, Steve Dangle and Adam Wylde.
Man, I don't even know. You've seen the title of the show. You know who's on the show.
Who?
So do we even need to introduce these two?
I think young Jesse Blake should.
Right.
Because he's the one who stumbled up to you guys drunk at a party, demanding that you come on the show.
I was tipsy.
That's exactly how that played out.
Staggering drunk.
Tiff 1 year ago.
It was Tiff.
Lots
It
of
was
swearing.
Tiff.
Tiff.
Yeah.
I was behind one of the Property Brothers in line, waiting to go upstairs at the what was the hotel we were at?
The Drake.
The Drake. And I saw Jesse taps me
Nobody
on the
knows
shoulder,
that.
and he says, "Sup."
He did not. There was a weird tap though, and then like
I'm
it
not
turned.
exaggerating.
There was a turn. Yeah, there was a weird tap and a turn. I'm like, holy.
And I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "I'm Jay Doggy."
No, he didn't.
And then it just disintegrated into just one drunken slur after another.
I don't know if I believe this anymore.
Yeah,
That's
it turned
exactly
into-
how I yelled.
I don't think you said
Jay
Jay
Doggy.
Doggy.
I said, Tom and Sam, come on our show. I know Dangle.
He looked at us and said, "Listen, Jay and Dan, we need you on the podcast. And if we don't get you guys on."
By the way, guys, welcome back to Canada. Really,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
glad
Thank
you're
you.
back.
Thank you. It was a long trek.
Good run at
Did you
Fox
see our
Sports. It was
walk?
good.
Thank
It was a
you.
long walk.
Long walk. The bit between the doors was my idea. It happens to me every day here at Rogers. Every day.
We should make the title Jay and Dan.
we really should. That would be
I
great.
think we should.
Okay, Tim and Sid in studio. Let's just give them an actual round of
unnecessary.
applause.
This is
Completely unnecessary, but we will
it's
take
not.
it.
It's not unnecessary. It's not unnecessary. You guys are. You're the original podcasters who made it. You guys are the ones who
Are
did
we?
it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Don't you
Adam
think?
Carolla
I'm
did it.
hoping it's not us.
Well, in Canada.
You think it's us?
Well, who
Is
else?
it us?
Who else did?
Yeah. Canadian sports? We'll narrow it
Yeah,
down.
no,
matter how
there's
many
no
you
sports.
get.
For sure, there's no sports.
No, nothing in sports. I can't think of anybody else. Nobody's crossed over from news. I mean, like I know Canada Land is a huge podcast for news in this country, but like nobody's kind of crossed over and taken a huge job on a network and continued to do the podcast as well. I haven't seen any of that.
Yeah.
But Tim deserves all the credit for it because when Score Tonight
true.
it's true.
Completely not utterly true.
He asked me to do a podcast, and I said, "What did you just call me?" I didn't know what it was. So this was 2000. What is it? This is 2009, 2010.
I don't
Got
even-
canceled, and Tim's like, "We're bored. Like I'm doing features. I forget what Tim was doing. Tim was doing more important stuff.
I was doing real things,
You were
but
doing real things.
But
I was talking about will Roman Turek re-sign with the Flames.
There's a name.
yeah.
Not a joke. And Tim's like,
And by real stuff, I mean U Sports or CIS football and stuff like that.
That's real stuff.
That's what I was doing.
Shout out Greg Marsham.
Yeah.
And Tim's like, you want to do a podcast? I'm like, does this entail work? And he goes, for an hour a week. I go, I could do an hour a week. And then I said, my next question was, what's a podcast? And he told me it's basically radio on the go. It's radio whenever you want. It's very unfiltered. And I go, sure. So we do the first hour one, and it was received very well, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was number one for 80 weeks. It was like Despacito.
Well, but that's just it was the podcast
Despacito.
Canadian version of Despacito.
Yeah.
People just couldn't get it out of their
Couldn't hang it
heads.
up. If Bieber wanted
Didn't
on
understand it.
couldn't do it. We
Yeah,
turned
they-
Bieber down.
It's amazing.
But it was totally the podcast thing was Tim's idea. I'd love to think someone else in this country, sports-wise, had a more significant pod.
Well, but I think
But I appreciate you saying that. I think you're lying.
I
don't think you're telling
I
the
did
truth.
some research for this, and I couldn't find anybody. And
Merrick versus Wyshynski
Is-
is a giant show.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
They didn't turn it into like
Steve?
now. There's a Merrick versus Wyshynski TV show.
Still
Right.
time.
There is still
Still
time,
time?
and I mean, someone should.
But I feel like
probably
they
get
were
on.
on TV the whole time, and I feel like Wyshynski got opportunities from Merrick Wyshynski Pop. I guess what you're saying is, did anything move from one to the other and basically not change? And besides us not swearing on the radio show, it really didn't change.
Fucking right, man.
well, I think too. What's interesting is that like you said you were doing
5 minutes.
You were doing.
Yeah, I
it's
knew,
cool,
I
man.
knew
It's
it.
like-
As soon as I saw,
couldn't go 5 minutes.
as soon as I saw the E's beside their podcast, I said, if we ever do this, Sixero's just going to revert back.
And I said that's a bunch of malarkey.
Malarkey.
When I was talking to Julie Adam, who is the head of Rogers Radio, about you guys, and this was a couple years ago, and we were talking about podcasting and stuff, and I was trying to get some sort of relationship going between our podcast and Sportsnet. It made sense. We both worked here. Jesse worked here. It was like, kind of an easy fit. And we're sort of still peripheral. But what was interesting was that she told me the story about how you guys were hired here, or at least partially. And it was Don Collins flipping her, the link to your show. So I guess she listened to it on a plane. And she's like, she got off the plane and she called him and she said, they won't swear as much on the air, right?
As much.
As much.
And she said, other than that, she's like, you could tell, instant magic. Did you guys know basically right away? Obviously, being number one helps, but did you kind of know? This is for real. This is something else.
I gotta be honest. I thought that podcast.
You
was
had
something.
no idea.
I had no idea. I thought it was something because Tim and I were bored.
Right.
So that's what
it.
we were doing. And then the 1 hour. It got more traction, and Tim's coming up to me, and there's the best part of podcasts are the standings. Do you ever see the podcast standings?
Which are in the end horse bleep.
But
yeah, they are.
They are horse bleep. Yeah.
You can swear. It's all right. Don't worry, man.
But
You know what? Great point and great point.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's
sound
exactly
good in a meeting.
Yeah,
What,
we're the number one sports podcast in Canada. What? Oh my God, that's amazing. How do they figure that out? Don't worry about it. It's fine.
How do they figure that out for anybody that
asked.
doesn't know? It's it's ratings and
It's
comments,
based
right?
on ratings, and comments.
And new listeners. So
Yeah.
every new podcast, which benefits whoever is listing the ratings so if you start your new podcast, you're going to jump to the top because you're going to have a whole bunch of new listeners, new subscribers.
Right.
So that would encourage you, like it did for Sid, to continue to do it. I honestly
We were
remember.
number one, I was going to leave immediately.
I remember, we did it, and I this is unconfirmed, so you can tell me or not, because I've never actually asked you this question, but I was convinced that Sid was as free and open and unconcerned about what anyone else thought because he thought nobody was listening. And I thought,
No, that's bang
you
on.
were cussing, you
I
were
was
doing
bang
things that we would, that you would never do, this
I
whole
was
new
challenging
personality.
foreign states. I was doing there was a freedom in that.
Yeah,
I
sure.
felt I was like a bird. I was flying. Pure Nelly Furtado.
Nelly Furtado? Yeah, all right.
Pure
It's
Nelly
CanCon, so it's
Furtado.
okay.
Okay, is that
good,
right?
yeah.
They're not going to charge us?
No, we're good.
You gonna give us some more bars? 'Cause that was like velvet and peanut butter.
I'm done.
But but it was just.
Let's wait.
It caught. There'll be time.
Yeah, there'll be time. It might be.
Can we run this through 5 o'clock? We don't have to do our show.
Yes.
You guys are rolling. We're just letting you go.
Absolutely no problem.
But I thought it would. Yeah, I thought. I knew we could do a good job. That's first and foremost. I just like to say, whenever Tim and I get together, I know we can do a good job. So that's not my concern for anything. My concern is how much work it's going to cost me.
Fair enough.
It is true.
Am I right?
No, not at all.
And the podcast was a cool idea, and the more we did it, the more I liked it, the more people liked it, the more often they asked us to do it, because then I don't know how long it was before we were 5 days a week.
Right.
And the traction we got, I would walk down King Street, going to my spot Zupa's down on
Nice.
King Street.
Ah, yes.
And
Do you know
I would have
Zupa's?
people,
I'm aware.
still there apparently.
Zoops.
Zoops. Cost me 5 years off my life cholesterol-wise, Zoops. I regret nothing. But I'd have perfect strangers take their earbud out and look at me and go, I'm listening to you guys right now. And just keep walking. And I knew it was getting a little bit of traction, but I didn't know what I know program directors would take it and do whatever. And it was just the timing of it too at the Score Television Network. It was an interesting time at the Score Television Network.
And I want to know what episode Julie listened to, because that, to me,
There were some
could have been-
dangerous episodes.
some very dangerous episodes.
Yeah,
Julie, I owe Don and Julie, and we owe Don and Julie a lot because it was a risk. Is Sid crazy? Can this work? But at the end of the day, I've never had any qualms about the confidence of myself or Tim or us together. I always had an internal chuckle when I heard people say, "Can they do this? Or can they do this? Or can they do that?" I go, there's not a damn thing we can't do. I'm serious.
Yeah.
There's not a damn thing.
Sid's the confident one.
Sam, I'll punch Irma in the face. I'll go down there right now.
Yeah.
We'll send you guys down to defend Florida.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But from a confidence standpoint, did I foresee the other stuff? No, I didn't. But I never for a second in my career working with this guy have I not had complete confidence in anything we've done, except for cut promos for Rogers. Other than that, they'll use everything, man. They will use everything. your mic's on in the washroom by accident, it's getting in
Oh,
to the promo.
okay, yeah. I've always wondered about how those were shot because I know how we do them.
We know that people make fun of our promos. That's basically what we're saying.
You know why? Because we make fun of our promos.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's sort of the point, right? At least people are watching them. If they're not making fun at all, then they're not making an impact.
Have you guys ever had to do the shoving buddies? Oh, this one.
This
look
guy.
out for this one.
Yeah.
Look at this one.
Yeah. But when we make that joke, the best part is when we make that joke while filming promos, it ends up. Tell me that I'm not right. It's in the promo every time. We'll do like the nudge of the cheek.
Yeah.
First we would do it as a joke, and then it would end up in a promo. And we're like, "Are you kidding me?"
None of the serious ones get used.
So like our normal interaction, we're like, "Don't do that. It's going to end up in the promo."
But it's always like, hey Tim, look at Sid like I don't know.
Get it? The thumb, get a load of.
But shoving buddies,
Get a load of this guy.
Look at this guy.
Did you hear what he said?
Hey Tim, put your fingers in your ear like he's too loud.
Yep.
But listen,
every
at the end of the
small
day,
town radio picture, every small town radio promo picture has somebody doing that, someone screaming, and
Or
somebody
apparently
putting it in.
national TV show.
You go to Kingston right now. Rick and Brett in the morning. So Rick's got his hands in his ears.
Brett's so loud. He's
The moral of the
obnoxious.
story
doesn't know.
is we love the promo. Thank you, Rogers.
Yes,
That's the
actually.
moral of the story.
Yes.
Not to take a step backwards, because we're going through the progression of the podcast and everything, but it sounds like it was your idea. What made you think, let's do this podcast that no one is doing? Because no one really did it back then.
Yeah,
It's a very new thing.
It was. I was listening to podcasts on my own, and I liked the chemistry that we had when we did Score Tonight on TV. But there was nothing in the genre that would allow us to be what I thought we could actually be. And I'm sure you guys kind of get the same feeling when you're vibing. You know that it's different than a radio show, or you know it's different than a TV show or breakfast television.
For sure.
Like there's just a different level. And I thought, well, we could take this. We could just take this chemistry and go and do. And the one thing is, like, we enjoyed talking to each other, so we just went out there and talked. And the one thing that we did differently than every other podcast was we had the ability to put it up live. So we would tweet out a link to the live podcast.
Oh, that's cool.
And this was just when Twitter was starting, and we had Cabral Richards, who's now on TSN. He would help us out by putting it out on his Twitter account, which had way more followers than each of our Twitter accounts. And so we would kind of do our podcast pseudo live, if that makes sense. So people would actually interact
So you'd be
with
able
the
to like
podcast.
retweets out.
Yeah, and that was kind of the first thing
There
that
became a group of. There were two groups: the podcasters who couldn't listen live, obviously,
Right.
But then, like the people who were kind enough on their phone or at work in their cubicle or in class in university who were listening every day, it became a whole separate crew. And it just these two organic kind of listenerships took place, if that makes any sense. Yeah. And it took it in two different, really rewarding ways for us, I thought. And it was again, it was unique and completely not my idea.
it was kind of a podcast. Like, it was a podcast, but the fact that we could go live with a
Started
link,
as a podcast, and then it
was
became both, really.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I guess, I mean, one of the things that I was sitting on a radio or sitting and watching a radio panel with you once, Sid, and you were talking about callers to sports radio shows and how you guys just don't take them, or you didn't take them.
Why? They're really good.
And
were you a caller? You were a caller when you were a kid.
I was a caller.
Yeah.
Were you a caller?
I was
Yeah,
a caller.
yeah.
I once.
You were. Oh, I was
was
saying
on
Dangle.
Chuck Swirsky.
Oh, were you on
Oh,
Chuck
yeah?
Swirsky? What was your? Were you good or were you awful?
I was really rehearsed.
You had a script. You wrote something out.
Did you
on
read
Windows
it?
95.
No, not like Big Fan with Patton Oswalt. I wasn't quite that bad, but I had my thoughts, and like everyone, I wanted to call in and talk Leafs with the Raptors play-by-play guy.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Let me get up on my soapbox.
Oh, we got Steven Scarborough went to me and had took my thoughts on Nick Antropov, and then I hung up.
I once called in Norm.
He was tall.
I called in Rumac. I've never told you the story.
Storm Norm.
Greg Sansoni was producing a show that night. I'm like,
And you're how old?
I'm in high school. This is 93, 94, 95. For
Right. So you're lonely.
I'm very lonely. Extremely lonely.
And you might have a
Flex
mullet.
Appeal won't be on for another hour.
That was noon.
I enjoyed her traps.
Yeah.
What am I gonna say?
What time was Latin Lovers?
For me, every day. 24/7.
VHS.
Despacito. What was I talking about? I called it a Norm Show.
Yes.
But I wanted to be called something like Big Daddy. I swear to God.
Why?
I don't know.
I think it goes back to the lonely part.
Right.
I wanted to be referred to. I wanted Norm on here to say Big Daddy from Mississauga.
Right. So there's a Portuguese guy with a mullet in Mississauga calling into Norm Rumack at 1 a.m. in the morning.
10, but whatever.
Right. With his clock radio turned down.
So at the time it was a Sony clock radio. I'll have you know. So Sansoni's producing on the other end. And I call him up, and he goes, Sports at 590 The Fan. What's your name? Where are you from? And I go, Big Daddy from Mississauga. And I've never told Greg this story either. I swear to God. And there's a pause.
And now knowing Sansoni, as we do, because we work with him for so long, you know why there was a pause.
I know where this was. So I go,
who's this idiot?
I go, it's Big Daddy from Mississauga. And there's a pause. And then Greg goes, seriously, what's your name?
Nice.
And then I did it again. I go, Big Daddy from Mississauga. He goes, you're not getting on as Big Daddy from Mississauga. So then I relented, but I was a caller at one time as well. And I had zero success. Basically, at that age of my life, I didn't do anything well.
Adam, you don't strike me as a caller.
Well, because I grew up in a radio family, so it was for me. It was like the magic of it was I'd seen it from behind.
Right.
So it was for me. It was like I think I tried to call into Kiss 92, the original version of it, several times when Tarzan Dan was on the air in the afternoons because I listened religiously to that, but. You could never get through, and yeah, I never called because I always felt like what an asshole move, Maryland's kid calling in, and so I always thought like don't do that, that's not cool, like let people get in the lines. I always felt like I would be getting in someone's way or something.
That might be the first time you've ever said Maryland.
Might be, yeah.
How wary?
Because we always call her Atlantis.
With Maryland, it's your own mother,
right?
How wary have you been in your career? Considering the reputation of family,
very
like, and
Yeah.
how's it affected your career? Do you think?
Well, I wouldn't talk about it for the first 5 or 6 years. So when her show launched on CTV, they actually asked to interview me, and I was at the Kiss's main competitor in town at the time, and I refused to be on camera. I said, "I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do it. I just wouldn't talk about it." And I think it wasn't until I was doing a morning radio show in Calgary where we finally said, "Okay, I think we can be out with this." My biggest fear was people thinking that I hadn't earned it.
You want to grind your own way, yeah.
For sure, yeah. And of course, like when I started, I was 18, so you're like an 18-year-old punk, and you don't want your parents' help anyway, right? And like, F you, like, I can do this myself.
What do you know, Mom?
Yeah, so I mean, I interned at Chum FM, but it wasn't through her. It was through the evening guy, Corey Kim. So I was very quiet about it for the first 5-6 years, and now we're pretty open.
Right.
But there's still people that are like, "Oh, you guys are related? That's crazy," and which always kind of surprises me. So yeah, I was
So completely unlike Sean Mackenzie.
what?
In the face!
Oh my god!
He was in this.
I didn't listen to that. I didn't listen to that podcast and refer to it right now. What are you talking about? I don't know.
He's a listener.
Whatever.
Nice.
That is uncalled for.
What? Oh, uncalled for. Mackenzie.
There's gonna be some Twitter
Mackenzie,
fights later.
hold on. Mackenzie, when he comes on our show,
Destroys our face.
always attempts to even if it's like he's prepared for us. And ours is not like we don't write anything down. We're not ready for anything. Just if a guy comes on and there's something we're talking about, we may end up chopping the dude or bigging him up depending on the situation. But Mackenzie's like always prepared for us to tear it, like seemingly to tear him down.
You don't see him
and then he fires that preemptive strike like, "You bald prick, shut up!" You're like, wait, I just said hello, Sean. So me firing back, I feel like
He comes to dinner with the knives out.
Sometimes it's like
Yes.
right at the end of his. You don't see it coming. Like it's right. Like he's covering the sends. Like, and Eric Carlson took another cortisone today, and he should be good to go tonight. Sean Mackenzie, Sportsnet, Ottawa. I hear Sid is impotent, and I am frozen. And that's the biggest dig ever. Right at the end of his throw, he always does that too. Sean Mackenzie.
So why didn't you guys take callers?
The original
Oh, right.
question.
Oh, so the original thing was
You're a good
Color.
producer. I like you.
So I was just gonna say it's interesting that you
That's
got that.
why you're here.
Yeah.
You guys figured out interaction with listeners without calls, which
Yes.
was a pretty new thing
Yeah.
at the
Yeah,
time.
Yeah, because people looked at us like we got a third eye growing out of our head. They're like,
Yeah.
what's Twitter? And then 6 months later in a meeting, they're like, Twitter's awesome.
Yeah.
Oprah's on Twitter now, right?
Just now?
No, back then it was
Oh.
like when Oprah went on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's when it was like
when the book clubs
mainstream.
went on Twitter, everyone went crazy.
In 2009, right around when you were starting the podcast, I specifically remember having a conversation with someone who like is a mentor in my career and is actually a really smart guy, but he had a really bad opinion at the time, which was, Twitter's a fad.
Yeah.
2009, it's a fad, it'll pass.
Yeah, we had a lot of that though. Like a lot of people were like,
It passed quick.
Why would you go to Twitter? And I'm like, what do you mean? I can edit every comment to what I need and I don't have to have bad colors.
Yeah.
Because I've already read their comment.
Right.
Like it made no sense to me to do colors if you have to sort through bad colors when you could just get all of the good colors. So while we were doing that first podcast, I was like, one, it's immediate. Two, people feel like they're actually a part of the show. And three, like I remember we had enough guys from the Fan at the Score that gave us kind of like, we were just two punks from two sides of the city coming together and doing something. But we had enough guys who actually did stuff at the Score that would tell us, like Elliot Friedman came out. There's a lot of guys that came out of the Score that were really good. A lot of guys and girls. And a lot of them just said like, there's callers and then there's listeners, and they're different.
And one group is
they
better
are.
than the other.
Yeah, and the ones that call oftentimes aren't listeners. They're just people who want to be on the radio.
Or drunk.
And so every
drunk.
PD would come to it like whatever and just say, "You guys got to take callers." I mean, that's what they do. That's what they do in the Fan in New York. Everyone takes callers. And I'm like, I'm taking callers. We're taking them on here. Like, and I'm editing them, and the crappy guys aren't getting through.
And it's pushing the conversation forward.
Yeah, first
Right.
time,
Right?
long
It's
time,
driving
takes up too many
things.
characters. You got to just get rid of something.
Yeah.
And it's the demographic they want.
Yeah, that was the other part.
I never understood that part of the argument. So you want us to hit a younger demographic, but take the guy from Fort Erie every day who calls and is unemployed. Really? This is how you want to build the audience? Really? Okay, maybe not unemployed. That's
And
a
no one
cheap
knew
shot.
that 1 to
But,
4 was
How
like
many
people.
Fort Erie listeners you just pissed off?
Yeah.
But Tim brought up an interesting point. The 1 to 4 was viewed, I'd like to think, a little differently before we got there, right?
Oh, it was
Like,
completely different. Like, when we get to radio, whatever, I'm moving. But it's just, no one realized that people would sit here and listen to this while they're at work. Like, that was foreign to
Or at
when
school.
we first started, or at school. Like, they're
Right.
like, people are listening in their car, and that's the only reason, like, the only place they're listening. Like, wait a second here. Like,
No, it's bigger than that.
yeah, like, you sit at your computer now at work.
Right.
And you can listen to whatever the bleep you want. And people are like, what? People are listening at work? Like, yeah, who do you think is like, we got lawyers, we got doctors? Like,
It is a mind bleep, but like I'm driving in the other day, the Monday, and I'm listening to Sportsnet 650 out in Vancouver.
yeah.
Just like that. In my car for an
Magic.
hour. No, but it's like it's
On the Radio Player Canada app, right?
which is available for download
That's
at
right.
the App Store.
That's
And it was fun
Rogers
until
plug.
it broke down after 10 minutes. But the point is this.
What broke down?
The feed was a little choppy. It was the first day. So it was
Yeah.
650. What are you going to do? It's Vancouver. It's a far away thing. But what were we talking about?
We're talking
Sean
about
Mackenzie's a douche. That's what we're talking about.
We're talking about
Kidding.
you're talking about in the car, listening in the car on the way to work. You were like the other day. You were so
But I just think this whole thing, what you guys are doing, what you've done along the way, like, I mean, seen all of the business, I feel like what happened with podcasts just kind of changed the way people interact in this business, and people feel like they were a lot closer to it than ever before.
it's a far more intimate thing, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like having a radio show and a podcast, the response from the podcast is 100 times what the radio show would be, and it feels like, and it's interesting. People like they feel like they're in the room next to you, which is
Right.
how radio is supposed to feel.
Right.
But podcasting actually seems to have been able to pull that off.
Take out commercials.
You ever seen
Yeah.
the meme of that kid
Right,
sitting
like-
next to a poster of 3 people talking, and then he's just sitting on the floor next to it eating cereal? He's like, this is what it's like to listen to a podcast.
Right.
That's basically exactly
Wait,
what it's like.
I've never
show
seen
you
the
a
meme. I'm
picture.
sorry.
Yeah, we have to show you the picture. I'm like, that hip thing? Oh, shit. Okay,
Right.
damn. I tried. I failed.
Jesse's pulling it up.
Where did it happen, guys, for you, where it went from, okay, you're at the score, you're doing this podcast on the side.
Oh, good meme, Dangle. Yeah, I'm
Right?
looking at it.
Yeah, exactly what you're talking about.
Good meme.
Quality.
First off, did the score, was it under the score banner? Or was it
Yes.
under that brand?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was just something that they were like, yeah, fine, do your thing.
Or Hardcore Sports Radio could have even been,
Yeah, it could have been.
which
Could have
was the spin-off where
Mike
everyone
Gentile,
was
Mike Gentile part of
yeah,
the time. Yeah.
where everyone was swearing and yeah, I was part of the score though, I think. And they had no idea. They just like
Yeah, put it
whatever.
out there,
Just, yeah.
To be fair about it to the score, though, we were pitched an evening show based on the podcast
Really?
by the powers that be,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, before we left, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I'm the one that wasn't. I don't want to speak for Tim. I wasn't too hot on it.
Why is that?
I think people watch sports at night. And I think they watch highlights in the morning, and I think they watch post game coverage right after a game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was hesitant to do that, but to their credit, when we were doing 5 days a week and it was growing, we were all brought together, and it was discussed. So it wasn't like we were just sitting there and the score didn't do anything, and John Levy didn't do anything, and those guys didn't do anything. We did talk about it, but I was a little hesitant about.
That makes sense. So what was the moment where that all, because you guys came over before Rogers bought the score, right?
Yeah.
Didn't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry.
You
You weren't a part of that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like that was something that you guys came.
Do people actually care about this?
Yeah.
You think so?
absolutely.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
I really care about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you
This is
were
interesting.
involved.
Because we
Yeah.
can get you every day, all the time, right?
Yeah.
I want to know how this happened. How did this happen?
You know what's funny
We have
is
such a wide variety of listeners, though. Like some people will be like, "There's too much Leaf talk." I'm like, "Well, a lot of people enjoyed it." Okay,
Right.
We'll get to Malkin in a sec.
Pittsburgh fans,
yeah.
We'll get to Yager.
Chicago fans,
Flames
you're
fans.
not talking about the Hawks enough.
Yeah.
You'll get your only Mata talk coming up.
Adam,
soon.
bring up your 20 minutes
Nice.
of prep on Sam Bennett. Let's go. 1.95.
I was surprised how low it was, man.
I actually was too.
What were they waiting for?
Yeah,
Just sign the deal.
Exactly.
Well, you want more money? Score more than 13 goals, man. Deal with it. Go,
Eight-
Sam.
eight-
Go be a Bennett.
18 in his
Don't
first
be a
year.
cat, be a dog.
What did Radulov just get for 18 goals? Sorry.
Go. Off topic.
Good point.
Habs are not going to make the playoffs this year. Go ahead.
What?
Whoa.
Whoa!
Whoa, we were not at the hot take segment yet.
Is that
Yeah, no,
right?
I so want to do that.
Hot take coming up?
Hot take segment coming up later.
Okay, yeah. So,
So-
who called you?
I'll
What
just.
happened?
So he was going.
Oh,
He was going, and they called me and they said, "Do you want to come with them?" And I had a bunch of different things going on at the score that were outside. I still have a passion for youth sports, CIS, Canadian
it was
University
NBA too.
sports. I had a lot of NBA stuff going on. I was doing a bunch of different things, and he just looked at me and said, "Listen, it's time for me to go." And I was at the end of my line there, and I could feel it, and I just. So he was gone. He was going to get his own radio show from 1 to 4. It was going to be Sid Sixero's show, and then I screwed it all up and said,
come
"You know
in
what?
with-
Yeah,
Made it totally better.
yeah." I screwed it all up for him by saying I was just. The score is such a great place because it allowed these people, everybody who was there, and we could just like Cabral Richards, Elliot Friedman,
James Cebulski.
Adnan Verk, James Cebulski, Sophia Yurksovich.
Jay.
Yeah, Sophia J.
Basically, everyone running hockey down at the CBC.
Yeah, Jackie Redmond, people at Hockey Night in Canada.
didn't Darren Dreger start there too?
No,
Isn't
we
he there?
didn't.
No?
We can't
No,
claim
he was too good for
Dreger.
us.
Oh,
Yeah, he
okay.
was too good for us, most definitely. But there's a bunch of people there, and they were just allowed to go. Like, do whatever the hell you want to do. But when it came to taking the next step, there was never enough money to back up what the next step would be. So you'd end up, like I was doing NCAA tournament hosting, which was like 4 straight, like 14-hour days. And we would have like a research staff of me and Beth Sherlock, who's moved over. And it was like I was asking poor Beth to,
And Beth's great.
yeah, and like, or just one person. And it was like, we're hosting one of the biggest tournaments in the world, and we don't have a research staff. And I would lose my mind when I couldn't get something because I wanted to be amazing at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just like, you know what? Sid's got the chute pulled already. I'm just going to jump on that and go. So the score was like this amazing place to grow and try stuff, but there was no next step. And I owe my whole career to the score. But there was just a limit to where it was, and that's why in the end it got sold to Rogers.
Right,
It was because
right.
they just couldn't afford to.
Hard to compete.
Yeah, even when they canceled our show, they're like, "We love your show." the score tonight. They
We
canceled
love
it
it
for
so
those
much. We want to get the fuck out of here. Right?
we love your show, but we can't afford it. We want to put resources elsewhere. And I was just like, how does that make sense?
Should have worn more Roughnecks.
Right?
Yes.
I used to watch.
They went casual, and we all like you're not allowed to wear ties because that's not cool. And I'm like, hey, is John
What is this, like
Stewart cool?
ESPN too?
Yeah,
Like,
John Stewart's
Overman
pretty
in a
cool,
leather
isn't he?
jacket?
And then, yeah, it's exactly what it was. It was
Do
like
you know how
mock
hard it is
turtlenecks.
to wear a mock-neck with breasts? Do you have any idea?
Shows
like
them
Dr.
off.
Frank
No,
Lista
yeah.
couldn't help me.
I had a friend.
I've heard those
Yeah.
commercials.
No, right?
I'm just
He's good at his job,
Yeah.
too. Shout out Dr. Frank Lista.
I had a friend call me once when we were on the score and just say, "You realize you look like Ralph Furley?" Ralph Furley is
That's quite the older
that's
reference.
a Three's Company reference.
Okay.
You have to pull it up.
They're looking.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Two guys in this room just went to look up Ralph Furley.
No. But hold on.
I've been
Think
feeling old recently,
think-
so we had you guys on.
think of the listener right now.
Well
Let
played,
them
Greg.
Google it.
Well played.
Yes.
Google Ralph Furley.
Ralph Furley.
They're doing it right now, unless they're over 40.
If it's not an Animaniacs character, I don't know him.
that's Ralph Furley,
But
and
he
we
has
had to wear
hair.
stuff like that.
Close.
The
Oh,
clothes.
sorry.
He has hair. That is.
I didn't mean to be a dick. Wow.
You didn't mean to be a dick. You just are a
Yeah,
dick.
wow.
Yeah.
Looks nothing like
So
oh, it does,
coming
yeah,
into the
but-
show, Sean Mackenzie up here on the dickometer, and
Yeah,
Steve Jester passed
Dangle.
him. That's amazing. Well
Oh, yeah.
done.
I gotta pass him.
So you come here, and I remember you guys coming in, and I think I had started afternoons just after you guys had started afternoons. So I remember, the big talk was you guys being here, and then the Olympics happen, and the goal happens, the women's hockey goal that blows up and goes viral, and then and this is just how it looks to me. And then there's several other clips that go viral. The show's doing really, really well, and they say they want to do a TV show. Is that kind of how it went?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
And
Rob-
are you guys like, yeah, sure, yeah, or is it like, oh, I don't know about leaving radio because
Well,
you were simulcast?
Yeah, we were simulcast. And I mean, 360 doesn't get the numbers regular Sportsnet does. But, it's a national platform.
Mm-hmm.
And it's big enough. And things were kind of going well. And Rob Corte, who's now basically running everything in Canada
Yeah, with Hockey Night,
with Hockey Night and Sportsnet, the most powerful man in the history of sports broadcasting, potentially, who wasn't in the role that he's in now, but was over the last few years. We'd always interact. Like he was always a big fan of the show. He was always supportive of what we were doing, and then he got promoted in a serious way, and he could affect change. And we talked, and it was I wouldn't say it was a right away thing, Tim. I don't know how to characterize it. There were concerns because what we were doing was working. And it was working from an audience standpoint. It was working from a workflow standpoint. We were in our car if we wanted to at 3:55 Eastern every day, if we had to be. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, though, it was radio is still the most challenging things I've ever done. It is my advice to any broadcaster listening to this: if you want to make money in your life,
Or wanna be broadcaster.
prove to people you can do 3 hours of radio well. If you prove to people you can do that well, the sporting world could possibly be your oyster. Now, that's not the case all the time, but to me, this is it. If you could swing that, and there were discussions back and forth in terms of time slots and this and that, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's an offer really either of us could have passed up. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think the beauty of Sid and I is we come at it from two completely different angles, and when we had the podcast in my head, I was always trying to figure out where do you take this? Because when we first did it, nobody took it seriously at all. Like even our bosses were just like, I don't care. And I was like, how can we build, what can we build this into? And my thought was always some sort of simulcast where just like you're doing right here, I don't know how we do it, but we'll do it. So I always thought it was just some sort of simulcast. And then when we got to the fan, it was like the only way we could take it up another notch from what we were doing at 1 to 4 was to somehow get the TV people involved, so that when things happen, like they got hockey, we could get the big hockey guests, or we could get the guests that we always watch go on Bob McCown, because Bob McCown was the king, and understandably so. And so we kind of just, how do we take the next step? So I always had this little book in my bag, and I could probably show you all the notes from when we were at the score of what it would be, and the closest thing to what it would be is what it is now. Though I don't know if we've actually achieved that in what we're at right now. But I thought that would be the closest thing there.
Wow, man. And nerves that first day. Do you guys remember the first day at all?
3-hour show. Yeah, I remember the first day.
Yeah.
We went from 3 hours of radio. This is so it was July 1st. It was the day Phil Kessel gets traded from Toronto to Pittsburgh. It's July 1st, 2015.
Elliot's breaking stuff, he does not listening to us at all.
Yeah. Elliot Friedman is sitting in there he's forced to be in there because they needed someone to help us with what was free agent. This is the first day.
Right.
Here we go. This is hockey. Canada Day.
So he's grinding out.
Yeah,
he's grinding. And
he's doing what they do in the promos to act like the guys are, we'll be breaking news and typing on computers and look at my BlackBerry. Look, I'm doing work. He's actually doing that and could give a bleep about what we're saying on this 3-hour show where we basically just went. And so it went from him saying, grind out 3 hours on radio. The only thing harder than grinding out 3 hours on radio is grinding out 3 hours on TV.
Live.
with like actual breaking news and stuff. But I thought it was fun as hell to do that. So anyways, it ended up, that was the first day. That was what I remember was like just this blur of 3 hours.
It actually turned into a pretty good, I was happy with the show.
We had great news.
That's probably our best first show ever of anything.
Yeah,
I would say
it'd be better than nothing happening, right? Like it's good to have a big story.
Yeah.
Like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it was planned perfectly. It was great. It was honestly, it was like we
planned to deal Kessel.
We had Jim Rutherford on for the Penguins. We had Don Cherry on that day. We had the Kessel trade. Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun.
What was Don like that day?
He was great. I think it was after the game, so we might have had a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. But he was fantastic. Like
After the Jays game.
After the Jays game.
Jays game. Yeah.
I was going. What?
Yeah.
No, the Jays game. He was at the Jays game, and he was just one of the great parts of the show, especially when we got to the fan, was you had no idea how many people you respected may have been listening to you, and Don listened a lot. And just a bunch of other names. I'm completely
but Don Cherry, to his point, Don Cherry was amazing to us.
Yeah.
Like Don Cherry comes on and asks for the horns, which, like for me, our use of the Jamaican, horns,
horn,
is something that was added early. And for my brain to wrap around Don Cherry coming onto our show to ask for the horns was just a mind bleep. Like I'm like, what? Like Don Cherry is coming on here and like, yeah, like that, boys. Give me the horns.
Not just ask for the horns. Like when we wouldn't give it to him, would get pissed.
Yeah.
Where's the horn? What's going on?
Like if there was a group of people that would have been like his demographic that would have been completely pissed at the horns, right? Like so many people in the fans were like,
because it's not hockey culture.
Yeah.
The horns aren't hockey culture.
And here's the protector of hockey culture going, give me the horns, boys.
So that's got to be, like, to me, that's got to be...
Bringing you in.
If Don Cherry's bringing you in, if he's welcoming you in, that's got to feel
It's a
pretty
decent
cool.
cosign, yeah.
Yeah.
Decent cosign. I once got a call from...
but we're still not in hockey culture, so...
No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Do you want to be, though? I mean, hockey culture can be such a pain in the...
Pay is good.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
See, and again, we're like, I love hockey, so like I grew up in a hockey family, but I looked at hockey culture and I looked at all the people who thought they knew hockey in this country, and I was like, I love every sport. Why would I just limit myself to doing one thing? And plus, when we got in at the Score, we were both interns at the Score together. And I was like, look at all these guys trying to do hockey. I love basketball. Screw it. I'll do basketball. I'll do football. I'll do whatever they want me to do to get into this business. And then I started watching like that hockey culture grow. And I was just like, like I grew up in it. I love hockey, but there's like this separation between the two that always bugs me.
A certain way that you have to be. And I'm not talking about the broadcasters, but I'm talking about in that inner circle, there is if you're not this way, then you're not one of us. Does that make sense?
No, I know exactly what you're touching on. I felt it as an intern here, like not to talk bad about the place that we're currently in, but like just down the hall.
Sportsnet 590?
Yeah, like I wasn't a big basketball guy, and Ryan Walsh, who took over as the head of the interns. So I was hired by Doug Fairway, who used to be the PD, and then Walsh took over, and he had this test that you had to pass in order to become an intern that had to do with sports knowledge. and he goes, name 6 Raptors. And I said, and I think I got to
Mamadou Anjai.
I got to 4, and then I went and
Popeye Jones.
and Graham Humphreys, and he goes, "Oh,
Not
good."
Graham Humphreys.
And then-
We
and
went
then
to school with Graham Humphreys, Chris Humphreys.
Exactly. I said Graham Humphreys,
okay,
and then
sorry.
and then he goes, "Oh, good, you passed." And then someone narked on me in the room, and they're like, "Wait, do you think that's one person?" I'm like, "It's not."
Joey
Oh,
Graham.
dude, yeah, Joey Graham and Chris Humphreys.
That's hilarious.
And so he goes, "Oh my God, you wouldn't have even passed the test." It wasn't just him, and he was very.
Graham
good.
Humphreys is half a point. I would have given you half a point.
I agree. Yeah. So
It's actually amazing that you said Graham Humphreys.
Yeah,
Like, what's
they're
the
like,
odds?
"Oh, you got it." Oh, wait, what? No. Got it.
So I want to get your takes before. I'm not sure if this makes your show today, but it would have made ours on a normal day. Sens removed 1,500 seats from the Canadian Tire Center.
For the season?
Apparently,
Permanently?
they were permanently gone after what happened in the playoffs last year. Good idea, bad idea.
Means there's better odds of non-sellouts. But I mean, if you're drawing
Better odds of sellouts.
Tell us.
They're taking the seats
better
out.
odds of not announcing non-sellouts. English?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you went a long
I
way
went a
there.
long way
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not in hockey.
That's a
That's why I'm not in hockey.
circuitous route. Yeah.
If it makes sense to Tom Anselmi and those guys, then it makes sense. I don't know. I sometimes don't know how to read that. I know it can spare some embarrassment just on the surface. I think we're all of the same.
But there's embarrassment
idea.
now, right? Like,
You would think after they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals last game.
I have to read the reasoning from Anselmi and those guys. I'm not sure why they did it. I think I know, but it's sad on the surface. I don't think a Canadian hockey city should have to do that. But and Tim and I have had this conversation enough on air where, and I don't think we've held back, where it's pathetic that a Canadian hockey city has this issue. But Ottawa's not like other Canadian hockey cities, and I understand that, but I still there's a part of me that finds it completely irrational and unreasonable that should be happening in this country. But
when's the
I'm
last
not in
time
this
you
city.
bought tickets?
Dude, I just bought season tickets to the Rock this morning.
Oh wow!
Such a liar.
My Argos,
He's lying through his
I've been an
teeth.
Argo season ticket holder since
You
19.
and Dirk Guy and 6
Really?
other people.
Yeah.
Me and Conrad Holloway back in the day.
On it, well, the Rocket. It's so much fun to go.
I don't know why it doesn't do better.
I used to do play-by-play for the NLL.
Yeah?
Yeah, I loved it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You really are the all sports guy, eh?
Yeah, I am totally the all sports guy. I did like 3 years of the NLL.
You did, and some of the scheduling in that. I remember he did an NLL game in Calgary. He took a red eye to do a high school prospects game in where was it?
Mississauga.
Mississauga.
It was Hershey Center.
It was Hershey
yeah.
Center. And what's his face was calling himself like a top 5 NBA lottery pick. Cheryev.
Ivan Cheryev.
Ivan
yeah.
Cheryev was calling him.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that name? No. Yeah, do you remember that?
He was nothing. So Tim's on no sleep calling a game, and I have to go in the stands and talk to this guy's agent, who is I am closer to the NBA than this guy.
No, it was a real. No.
Cheryev sucked.
No, it was.
Cheryev was
I think it
ass.
was Bill Duffy. Like, I really think it was a legit agent in the crowd. And I also think he wasn't allowed to talk about. Anyways, we're getting on. I think he wasn't allowed to talk about the actual prospect on the floor because that would be some sort of
my point is
violation.
he would do NLL and work pretty damn hard at it because some of the scheduling was a little nuts. But
Lacrosse is a great sport.
It's an amazing sport.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. I remember in Calgary they had they have like certain chants or whatever. So
Roughnecks.
yeah, so the Roughnecks announcer, who was like a local morning show host on a really nice, like very sweet radio station. He's a really sweet guy, but he'd get on the.
Was it Bruce Barker?
No, Mookie Wilson.
Okay.
And so he would
Wait,
get
he
on
played for the Jays and was a morning?
what a player!
Oh, no, he's
Unbelievable.
What a player!
Yeah.
So he's a guy that
Speaking of versatility.
he'd be like, if the Rock were in town, one of the Rock players gets a penalty, and he'd be like, "Sit down," and the whole arena goes, "And shut up!" And everybody's in their Calgary hunting gear, like ready to go. Couldn't see anybody. It was amazing. Like some of the atmospheres there are so great, and you almost feel like, man, if they allowed like one day a year where the Leafs, average Leaf fans could actually afford those tickets, that's what it would feel like. It would just be bananas in there.
The loudest crowd I ever had, I swear, I called the Calgary Roughnecks Championship, and they opened up the Saddle Dome, even so beyond the the rafters right up at the top.
Yeah.
Usually in regular season games, they'll close those off because they're too high and they're behind the press box. So they opened them up. It was sold out. The arena was unbelievable. And having grown up in Toronto, that's all I could think of, what you just said. Like, if they actually let real Leaf fans go into a stadium and just have it to themselves for one game.
That's what it would feel like.
And when they were so crap, I would say it on the radio. Like, they need to do this. They somehow need to just outlaw every suit for one game. Have you said this?
No, I was going to say they did that with the Coke Zero fans' first game. That preseason game that was for free.
Right.
Piece of garbage that was. No, I totally agree.
It's no Sprite fan zone at Raptor games, though.
Yeah.
It's no Sprite fan zone.
Wow, what's that? I don't even.
It's just regular fans.
Oh, okay.
No, but that was
like $11.
right. That was the point of the Sprite.
Maybe they should do that in Ottawa.
And why the Raptors were always louder.
Should have a Sprite bowl.
Sprite the whole.
I swear to God,
second level.
If I plead to anyone listening to this in the Toronto area, if you have money and nothing to do with it,
Give it to me.
Give it to Dangle. If that doesn't work for you, buy a section at the ACC for the season, lower bowl for Leaf games, and let the Red Patch Boys be there for every game.
But there's a Blue Patch Boys that you could go to Mississauga and Scarborough and find and let them sit there. Andrew Bogut, when he was in Milwaukee, basketball player, he used to buy a whole section and give it to fans that would cheer the entire game. And if you didn't cheer the entire game, you were out of the section. And it was a pretty good section.
That's awesome.
And it was because Milwaukee was bad and they didn't have, sellouts and they didn't have sellouts. But he did it, and it was amazing. And I think like the section 0 because he wore 0. But anyways, if they did that in Toronto, I used to work at the Score with a lot of people from Ottawa and other parts of the country, and they would come in and they would say, the Leaf fans are so terrible.
Well, we were also brutal.
Yeah, and the team. Well, but by then the Leafs were okay and they were making the playoffs. This was probably early 2000s, and I'll never forget. I had guys from outside the city, and I would constantly tell them, like, the real fans are not at the game. The real fans are in bars all across the city, and the Leafs made the playoffs, and I was out. And the guy was having, smoke on the smoking balcony back in the day. And he heard this roar. And he goes, "What the hell was that?" I go, "The Leafs just scored." He's like, "What are you talking about?" I go, "The Leafs just scored." And he's like, "Come on." And I'm like, "Wait." And it happened to be that the Leafs scored 2 goals in a minute. And he heard a second roar. We went inside, and the Leafs had 2 goals. And he's like, "I can't believe that."
Yeah.
And I'm like, see? That's where all the fans are. And I use that story all the time to say,
get a section. Just buy a section.
Or it ended up being Maple Leaf Square. Yeah.
Well, and that's why the TFC games are so much fun to go to.
But that was just bars. That was there's no such thing as Maple Leaf Square at the time.
No,
that was
just
just bars.
Heard it arbitrarily.
We were downtown Toronto.
King West.
And you could hear roars from all the bars in the area because people were watching the games because they couldn't afford to go inside.
The TFC fan supporters, like if you're part of one of those groups, I think it's $10 a game. But that is part of the deal is you got to get up and chant the whole time, and they let them shoot off flares and smoke bombs and stuff like that. And
apparently, did you read the story? Somebody bought tickets to the Jamaica game, which I think, Tim, you were at the Jamaica game, right?
No, I didn't go.
You didn't go?
I was going to go.
Somebody bought tickets to the Jamaica game through the Voyageurs, a fan group, and were not ready for the atmosphere, and then complained. I swear to God, they complained.
Great, yeah.
The Voyageurs posted a reply. You could see it on Twitter. They complained that people were standing the entire game. They couldn't see. And the response from the Voyageurs was one of the biggest fuck yous I've ever seen. It was glorious. I encourage you to read it. They were like, "Shut up. We're cheering. You don't want to cheer. You go somewhere else."
You're in the cheer section.
It was brilliant. The response was brilliant.
And those games are wicked,
But
too.
there are people who also in Southern Ontario, for some reason, just don't want to get up.
Yeah,
They
I noticed
don't.
that concerts. I noticed that.
Concerts blows my mind. That's a thing.
Crazy.
Why'd you get tickets?
Why
Like,
are you here?
But that's why the West makes fun of Toronto, right? Like, we all understand that.
Yeah.
Like, when I used to travel I used to do typecast play-by-play as well. I did a lot of it. But I would go west. And
We
they
could
would
do a whole episode on your resume.
No, but I just did a bunch of things that no one really listened to or cared about. But
Can you run the typecast?
yeah.
He's like the dean of a college.
I shouldn't have said that.
You should have been the guy in there going, "No, this is a bad idea."
But that's why the West makes fun of Ontario, because they watch these things and see these things and don't see the bars and don't see and go, "Come on." Because Calgary, you go to any game, there's a jersey in every row. Edmonton
You're
is the
dressed in red.
exact,
You don't go in any other color in Calgary.
No.
It's red.
Yeah, and the same in Edmonton and Vancouver here and there.
Well, if they're winning.
Yeah, if they're winning. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask you guys about a couple things that are like, with regards to like just like actual sports things that have happened recently. Maurice and Cheveldayoff got their extensions, and this is for you too, Steve.
Oh, that's official now.
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe so. What do you think?
I guess making the playoffs isn't that important.
Damn.
Wow.
That's
Someone challenged me on it.
It's pretty interesting because
Kevin Cheveldayoff is a stand-up human being, and I'm a big fan of Kevin Cheveldayoff. This is this isn't the tri-league, to borrow a baseball term. This is the get-it-done league at times, and Maurice, I can see. I mean, it's been 2014 for Paul Maurice. I get it. I don't know.
Are they?
I'm a little confused with Cheveldayoff.
Are they in a position to be good?
If you build around the kid, number 29, yes. But
And
that's
they-
another
they've
3
got
years away.
they've got some other players on that
They
team.
do. Shifley's good.
Shifley's really good.
I think there's parts of
Bufflin.
their blue line that are very overrated. And
Really?
I don't think Steve Mason's going to help him in one way. shape,
that was
or
the.
form.
That
I'll
was
give you the
question.
goalie. That's
yeah, a lot of the people in the Stats community seem to think the Jets are going to end up doing pretty good, but yeah, you had the worst goaltending in the league for a while, and Steve Mason's your answer. Like, even if he has a bounce back year,
Maybe they'll get to 27th in team goals again.
No, but they're
Maybe
but
they'll get to 27.
hold on. But they're rolling the dice that either their kid gets better or Mason can stop gap until they find somebody else.
if
That's what
both
they're
those
doing.
Things happen, you're good, but that's 2 ifs at one position.
No, I completely understand. But if you look at that roster, I'm not saying that that's a terrible team. And I
don't
think
think they are.
and I
I
think
think they're good.
And I think what they've done there is had patience, which is rare. The patience is done because they made one playoff since returning to Winnipeg.
In the last 4 games.
And they were swept. But
No wins.
if you look at that roster, they've done a pretty good job of roster construction, and they haven't sold out. They didn't sell out, and having been in Toronto when they were selling out repeatedly, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work.
But I think now you have the guy where you can sell out a little bit. Like, they didn't have a guy to build around. Tim's right. Now you have the guy to build around. I think you could be a little more risky.
No, but I think Shifley is a really,
I'm not saying trade Shifley.
really good player.
But I'm
and then
saying-
you got
I'm
Laine.
saying now's time to take maybe a couple of risks. I don't think Bufflin is is Bufflin a top 10 defenseman in hockey?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
Because he gets
No.
talked up like he is. Is
I think it's
Jacob
'cause he played for
Trouba the
Chicago.
next guy?
Well, and I think it's because at
Jacob Trouba
times
doesn't
he
wanna
looks
be
like a top 10.
He's such
Like-
an interesting guy in the league. Like, yeah, at times he looks like it, but every night he can just do things that no one else can because
Right.
no one else is 265 pounds.
Right.
You know, like,
And can move like him and has some, but he's not as consistent as he'd like to be a top 10 defenseman.
I think I know what you're touching on though. Like, until Patrick Laine, they had a lot of, really appealing pieces, but no real
Star.
Like I agree with Cheveldayoff not doing anything. Like, who are you building around?
Right.
It's a difficult question. There's no question now. So have a go.
Right, but the honeymoon's over. Like, now it's time to.
And to that point, I agree
This
with Tim.
extension is here you go. If you
Yeah.
don't get it done, you're done. For both Maurice and for Cheveldayoff.
The league
in
today,
my mind.
league today just announced the trade deadline next year will be Monday, February 26th.
Wow, that's early. It feels early.
I think it's about the same time as last year, though.
Is it?
Yeah, they moved it up a little. I guess my point is, Cheveldayoff's kind of been low key ahead of those dates in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be stunned if that was the case this year. Now, obviously, it depends how the season's going, blah blah. But I think the time to be a little risky is very soon for Cheveldayoff. Maurice has more rope, but we'll see. I'm surprised. I'm surprised by Cheveldayoff. Maurice, I'm not
Marleau
surprised.
coming to Toronto.
I think he said, "Am I playing with Matthews?" Someone said yes, and he said, "I'm coming." I think it's that simple.
Sean Mackenzie's father reported that. What? Sean Mackenzie's father.
The unnamed father
I think
has
reported
reported.
that Marleau may start with Kadri, which I haven't heard a single person say, but I think actually kind of makes some sense. Like, the Matthews line.
With all due
was-
respect to Zach Hyman.
Hey, I'm
with
not
all
even
due respect to
leaving
Zach
him out
Hyman.
of it. Like, you could put someone else there.
Connor
It
Brown.
doesn't matter. Like,
Probably Connor Brown.
maybe, but like, it's just that line did so well, and the JVR Bozak Marner line is its
Leave it.
own thing. It's the we know you don't do defense line. So what's left? 30 goal scorer Nazem Kadri, Leo Komarov making you hate everything in the world, and yeah, let's put a guy with over 500 career goals.
Gives Marleau an enforcer. With Kadri. The cheap shot artist Kadri, right?
Hey, I love it.
He's got his enforcer in
I
Well,
Kadri.
he found his game.
Such a rat, but he's our rat.
No, he found his game. He's so
Brown,
valuable.
20 goals, Connor Brown, though, eh?
By the way, that's what you get with
that's-
patience, eh? 6-0.
Patience?
Yeah, have patience with a guy, have patience with a team. Look what Kadri turned out to be. How many people in Toronto wanted Kadri gone?
Well, Kadri's not going up against the number one guys on the other team anymore, though.
Well,
No.
he was for part of the year.
But last year he wasn't. For the end of the year he wasn't. I'm just saying I think that matters to a certain extent.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, without a doubt.
But that doesn't mean he can't be great for you in that role.
It was a different thing night in.
He scored 30 goals and made an impact defensively in the face-off circle and was a pain in the ass to a bunch of different teams, and people don't want to give him credit. Maybe the guy sitting to my left right now doesn't want to give him credit by diminishing it against who he played against.
It's true, though.
He was remarkably
He's not
valuable.
playing against other teams'
Yeah.
top guys with Matthews around. That's a fact. That's not an opinion. That's a
Right.
fact.
And
That
but-
happened.
But how does that
Should-
diminish
nobody-
30 goals
Like I-
and making
like
an
I just
impact?
said, he was fine in that role. He's very good in that role. I'm not ready to put him in all-star games for the next 5 years, is what I'm
Let's
saying.
talk about what Nazem Kadri did to you. Like, I just yes.
Well, that suspension that one time, I was involved that night.
Where did he hit you?
Where did he hit
The same
you?
place he hit Ovechkin.
Damn. He's purplely bruised.
Sorry, you're saying Marleau's not playing with Matthews? That's what you're telling me right
Not
now?
right away.
Come on.
I don't think so.
Are you
It doesn't
serious?
matter. That's the
I'm
beauty
not
of
even
it.
saying
Are
it's
you
necessarily-
serious?
It's like the conversation I have with Leaf fans where whenever I put Matt Martin in the lineup, they're like, "You think Matt Martin should be in the lineup?" I'm like, "That's not what I said. I said he's going to be in the lineup." You know what I mean?
Patrick Marleau made the playoffs 12 out of 13 years in the fucking state of California.
Don't tell Jeremy Roenick.
He left California to not play with Auston Matthews, is what you're telling me.
But it doesn't matter.
All
You
logic
just
says that's
shuffle
correct.
lines as the year goes on. Like, how often have you seen lines stay completely the same?
Only the
game
Leafs
to
last year.
game? Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they barely changed anybody until
No.
as soon as they sent what's his face from the Senators down.
What's his face?
Not Greening, not
Yeah.
Greening, not
Okay.
Light,
I was
not
gonna say Green.
McCulloch.
McCall. Yeah,
Yeah.
once McCulloch was out, then it was Connor Brown in, and lineup basically stayed the same. And then they, Kapanen and Boyle were added towards the end, and those lines were those lines.
Yeah, but you just added a guy who said, so it's going to be a little bit of trial and error to see where this guy fits.
Right.
And Leaf fans should be okay with that, even though their roster did relatively stay the same, including Zach Hyman, which pitched everybody off.
The best trial and error, though. Like,
Yeah, no, you've got a
This
guy
is like-
who scored 500 career goals, and you're shuffling him with all these young stars. Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
Marleau busts his knee, misses the entire season. Their lineup is still better up front than it was last year because Dominic Moore is your fourth center, and nothing else has changed. It's
By what?
I don't remember
5%.
ever being
It's
in
better
that
by
position.
5%.
But you could play
6%.
You could play on a second line, and I put that in air parentheses, and then play first power play time.
Yeah.
like so.
Yeah.
It's 6 and 1/2 dozen of the other until you find what works, and then
You'd
you
have
go
a
with it.
Matthews, Marleau, Marner, first power play. That
Are
would
you
be
okay
ridiculous.
with 3 years and all the money?
Yeah, because then you're not paying the guys real money till then anyway. I'm completely fine with that. Although there was a snippet I saw today that I think
Oh, I
William
love snippets.
Nylander told the media his people are talking to the Leafs. Now they can't have that discussion until July 1st of next year. I think technically,
I
but
think they can start.
They can talk,
I think
they
right?
can talk. I don't think they can even talk. Well, the legalese of it is they can't talk until July 1st. But we all know that's a load of garbage.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
of
is
course.
a little garbage.
But William Nylander did say that today, which was kind of interesting. But yeah, the Leafs, the Marleau thing, I think has very little risk to it. I love it. I think it's great.
The league's changed, obviously, because you have to maximize when you have guys under control at lower prices. So the Leafs are saying, okay, we got a guy in here that can help right now and see if we can take that next step with these young guys, because as Calgary Calgary of all teams runs into, you got to get guys and move them along, because we've hit what? Like, what did they hit? A second round?
Yeah.
And then they're too good to keep together? Makes no sense. So the Leafs are going to hit that. We keep being told they're too good to keep together. We're going to have to pay them too much money. So why not try and take the step now? I mean, Lou's basically said that, right? Like, Lou Lamoriello basically said, this is fast forward. We hit the fast forward button.
Want to go old school Twitter questions?
Yeah, do you guys want some Twitter questions?
The other
Yeah.
Twitter questions? Do
What's
people?
Twitter
The big
questions?
one we're getting asked is why is it Tim instead of in front of Sid? Why is it Tim?
Because the other way, we got canceled.
That is correct. We used to be
People
Sid
think-
and
People
Tim.
think we're kidding when we say that. It was Score Tonight with Sid and Tim.
Score tonight.
Score tonight. SC.
Sid and Tim.
They pulled us in a meeting and said, we don't like it this no more.
Yeah.
And so Tim's
It was in the basement of an Italian restaurant.
Guys playing violin in the back.
one night they rented the back room at Scattaboosh.
What was the supper club? What was Frank D'Angelo's supper club right across? Forget about it, supper club.
Forget about supper club.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Show me who you hang out with, and I'll tell you who you are.
That was in the movie.
Yeah, there you go.
Is that what that is?
The Neighborhood.
Yeah.
Frank
Yeah,
D'Angelo.
that's from the neighborhood.
Television.
From the
Yes,
neighborhood.
The neighborhood. Living in the moment. I'm gonna stop talking about Frank D'Angelo.
Yeah. So okay.
What
So
was the question?
What was it?
So
Twitter question?
that's the reason it's not.
Yeah, there's
Sid
no
and
rockets
Tim.
to the science.
No, not at all. We just
No,
went to a
that's-
podcast and
yeah.
like we got canceled as Sid and Tim. Let's go Tim and Sid.
Okay.
See how this works out.
Jersh wants to know.
What's up,
your-
Jersh?
And plus I'm way better, so I go
Way
first.
better.
Your way too
I'm
early
kidding.
Stanley Cup prediction.
Stanley Cup prediction? I think Kadri's winning the Conn Smythe.
There you go.
I think there is nothing dumber than a Stanley Cup prediction, because this league is insane, man. Like
Yeah.
this league, there is nothing crazier than the National Hockey League, where they have convinced every superstar to not make the max. Every team has movement. Every team is so up against the cap, and the cap hasn't moved, by the way, despite all these new arenas. Yeah, I'm not predicting it. I resent the question.
By the way,
I resent the question.
earlier in the show he predicted that the Canadians would not make the playoffs.
The
Yeah.
Canadians are not making the playoffs. I like to tell you.
why is that? Carey Price.
Because Jonathan Drouin is going to get swallowed up by the Montreal thing. And we all know what the Montreal thing is, right?
It's like it.
It's it. By the way, the fucking clown thing with that trailer is the scariest
the movie.
thing.
Yeah. Oh.
We got to listen. I know they're paying good money to advertise. I'm freaking out every time I see that commercial.
I already got tickets for Saturday.
You're
I
going?
already got
So
tickets.
excited.
Yeah.
Tell me how,
I don't even
tell me
like
how it
scary
ends.
movies.
I don't mind the spoiler.
They shot it down the street from Steve's house. They shot the big scary
In
house
Oshawa.
in the.
It's all-
It's in
yeah.
Oshawa. Yeah, they
Actually-
didn't have to do much to the house.
I have a bit of.
Pow, 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 pow.
or the smell.
Actually, they pulled the clown out of the bar. It was crazy, just down the street.
I will.
They didn't even pay him.
Yeah.
Just they paid him in booze.
I
Wasn't it your agent?
would never mess with the schwa like that. I am eliminating myself from that conversation.
I actually,
Recusing.
I do
Yeah,
know a story.
yeah.
There was a guy who was involved in movies somehow, and anyway, he was going down to that shoot. They set up this, big scary house in Oshawa, and he's walking down the street, and he's going, "Man, they did a really good job. Like, this looks run down, and like
You found
it's
the
kinda
most
spooky
piece
here."
of
Nope.
garbage.
And then he realized he was still a block away from the set. I'm not making fun of my city. That is
That's
a
where
real
he's from.
story that happens.
Are you from? You're from Scarborough.
Scarborough.
And then you went to Oshawa,
Because it's cheaper.
right? No,
Significantly.
they are similar.
How long have you been taking HGH? Because your arms are.
Yeah. What's going
Do they
on
drug
here?
test on the show or not? I guess not.
No.
No.
You can be on any drugs.
I don't
And
have
he's
any of the
not on
symptoms. The rage. I don't have any of that.
Hey, you haven't
know
yelled.
what,
You have not yelled in this entire.
No, you haven't.
Because on the podcast, I'm relatively normal-ish.
Yeah. It's funny. If everybody says that, and then I guess because I mean, I've known Steve since high school. We've been buddies forever, and I don't know him to be a yeller. But when you do watch those videos, you are yelling a lot.
Well,
So
because
that's how
you
everybody
fucking
knows you.
criticize me for buying a $60 James Reimer figure, knowing how much I love James Reimer. God damn it.
That's
in my
the only
room.
time.
It's in my room forever. I love my James. I wish he was still a Leaf.
Did you guys know that? You know those plastic dolls that
Yeah.
grown men buy?
Figures.
He bought one for $60, and it was a James Reimer one.
It's rare.
And they said, well, there's only a limited amount of these made. And I said, Steve, that's because only a limited audience would buy that.
Bullshit.
But
Bullshit.
he-
Go try to buy one today.
$60 fucking dollars.
Maybe
Smackaroos, and I do it again.
I went online. I told a story on air. I was looking for a trophy from the man cave, like a soccer trophy. Like Portugal won the European Championship last summer.
Ah, yes.
So I go on UEFA.com.
He's Portuguese.
Background's Portuguese.
I've heard.
So I'm like, I want the trophy for just to set up somewhere. So I'm like, I find the 60-centimeter trophy. It's like 100 euros. And I'm like, I'm dumb enough where I'm going to do this. So
100 euros?
100 euros.
That's a lot of money. And
So-
ship it.
And shipping. So UPS got me that way. And it showed up. Showed up at the door. And my wife gets it. And she's like, I think there's something wrong with this. I'm like, what do you mean? And it was like a little bit bigger than a jewelry box. It wasn't 60 centimeters. I read it wrong online. It was 60 millimeters. It was smaller than your phone, and I paid 100+ euros for it, which still isn't as bad as the James Reimer figure. It's not as bad as that.
I hang it in my
not
room
as
with
bad as
pride, and there's a picture right next to it of me with my James. I call him my James. It's my James.
With
Why
the
don't
Florida Panthers starter.
But why don't Portuguese
Yes,
soccer players
starter, don't you
want to pay
forget
their
that.
taxes?
Sorry, what?
Why don't Portuguese soccer players want to pay their taxes?
Dude, I don't want to pay my taxes. Who wants to pay their taxes?
There's
Find me
some-
the guy who goes, you know what? I'm going to get up this morning. I really want to pay some taxes. Find me that person. The Spanish government's corrupt bastards, that's why.
Okay.
They're going after people all the time. Went after Messi, Ronaldo, just the big ones. Tim will tell you. Tim read the story.
Speaking of Portuguese people, your brother is also in sports broadcasting.
The one with real talent, yes.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And he's a Portuguese person.
yes,
Just
Alex.
to put that out there.
He's Portuguese. But
He's actually Slovenian.
Yeah.
It's a strange
Cross the border early.
Euro 2000 was a big moment for him, getting in there for the first time.
Is it a
World Cup,
coincidence
too.
you guys both got into the
Right.
same field, or
We never talked about it because Sixeros don't talk about their feelings much.
Sure.
But he, in later years, he told me that I was his massive inspiration for life. And maybe I'm overshooting it a little bit, but
that doesn't sound like him?
no. But he
Doesn't
wanted.
sound like
We
Alex.
both have love. Sports was always. Our dad's a huge sports fan. Sports has always been a huge part of the house, and it's fluky how it worked out, but it's been really cool because more people probably listen to him in a week than watch me. I would, if you're doing the math on it.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who, it's not prominent. Like, he doesn't have his name like on a show title, but he's on the air every.
He's
All the
getting more
time.
airtime
Yeah.
than a lot of people. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Like Alex has done phenomenally well. He's one of the best broadcasters in the country. He's better than me, and we are both Portuguese. Yes.
And you were also,
He's one of the guys that got coffee for him.
and
It was
both
amazing.
shish-
Really?
He's been doing
Was
it.
he was he a dick about it, or was he okay?
Huge dick. Yeah.
Seixeiros. You got him coffee?
I think so, a few times. Yeah, him and Andrew Nye.
So is that why when I offered to buy you coffee and bring it into the studio today, you referred to me as your intern?
Yeah, because I've never had one. Like, I wanted to have one. I was busy getting Bob McCown his coffee.
Ladies
To
and
which my
gentlemen.
response was, some of us don't forget our roots.
oh,
I'm not Sean Mackenzie, sir. You know, bullshit.
And you're lifting weights, too. I'm actually kind of sort of scared.
I love your traps.
I'll be your trapezoid.
Great trap.
Come on and wind me up.
Dudes, when you've been working out, I don't get it.
You just look all swollen. I miss tight shirt Thursdays in the email. Look at Wild
Just a regular V-neck.
Wild is wild.
That's just-
No, but you didn't wear a V-neck when you weren't as swole.
You're 100% correct.
Yeah, there's
You can only
yeah.
wear V-necks when you work out a little
Yeah.
bit. Right?
yeah.
Fair enough.
You are-
I wear it on stage at Puck Talks tonight. There's a little plug.
Hey, accentuate the positive, all right? Look at that.
Well, it's like, so I've really only started working out like the last 2 or 3 years, and I've noticed ever since, like, men will just walk up to you and they'll like mug you. They'll feel you. Hey, look
Yeah.
at what have you been doing here, buddy? And they just start feeling you up and grabbing you.
Is today leg day? What was today? Today was arm day,
No, just did a few push-ups at home.
waist day.
Yesterday was kind of all around. Did a lot of abs because I have none,
Mm-hmm.
and this is to distract from this. And it did some sprints.
Sprints.
Wow, sprints.
And Wild's too busy to do any of this.
Well,
He's got
I
8
don't run.
jobs.
I'm not running unless something scary is chasing me.
Adam's like, I'm too busy to work out, but he's sitting on the moneymaker right now. You haven't seen it. Oh my God, this guy.
What the hell are you talking
So
about?
you mean he's got a fantastic
Talking about
ass?
Yeah.
Is that
Yes.
For the
Actually-
record, I have
Yeah.
the nicest ass in this room.
Oh, I
wow.
think- I don't know.
For
There's
the-
we may have
two
to have an
cameras
ass
now.
off.
for the record? Yeah. Oh yeah, there are cameras.
Two
All
cameras.
right.
Melanie Ng from BT actually told me the other day. She's like, your ass is like a shelf. Like she's like, I could put my coffee on your ass. Right now.
That was a compliment?
Yeah. I was like, is that a good thing? She's like, yeah, no, it's good. I'm like, okay, good, thank you.
Oh, she went
Appreciate
up though. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe not.
I don't know.
I grew up in a Jamaican neighborhood. That was
It's important.
that was a big thing in my neighborhood.
Compliment?
If you could put a drink on an ass.
I
That was-
walked
that was
by
a-
2 women the other day, and I heard from the corner of my ear, them cakes, though.
What's amazing about that is it's another lie, and he just thought of it. That's awesome.
I heard it. I passed by a construction site. They
Them
were very
cake-
rude.
Yeah,
Very
them
rude.
cakes though.
But it's not like Adam Wylde. So. Have you
Don't
seen
you-
it? It's like a shelf.
Adam, can I say, I think you're great on BT, man. You do everything well. The radio show's great.
Oh.
I watch you on BT every morning. I think you do a phenomenal job.
Wow.
I just think
Ditto.
you're great. I think you're fantastic.
I'll hear
I'm waiting
that.
for the butt.
No, there's no. Hey,
Dangle,
Sean
you
McKenzie
suck.
sucks.
How about my YouTube videos, guys? I was on Sportsnet last year. No one said anything.
And Dangle, I can't wait
No
to
one
see
reached
you
out to
on
me.
camera one day.
I reached out to you. I stopped you.
True. That is true.
I stopped you and I said that I like the stuff and if I can ever do anything, and then you said go F yourself.
And then we were accosted
never
by
talked
Jesse
again.
at TIFF.
Yeah. And then Jesse had to come
Is
talk.
that a property, brother? I need a new fence. Can you make me a fence? Hey, we're at TIFF. Let's have a drink and watch a movie.
That's exactly what I said.
That sounds like Jesse
So
drunk.
rude.
That's pretty
So
good.
rude,
That's
Jesse,
pretty good.
I think.
Next question.
We talked about this a little before the show, but Hard Ev want to know if you miss radio.
Yeah.
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 I said before the show. I said immensely. It's just a different feel. It was we're rushed every day in TV trying to hit
Everything.
hit
Don't get me
everything,
wrong.
hit
Really,
times.
it's like it's rewarding as hell. Don't get like
Oh yeah.
just to say that. as
and we
well.
get things that we would never get anywhere else.
exactly.
We get guests, all those things that we'd never get anywhere else.
But there is an odd, and even in radio, some days we'd feel really rushed. But I think it's because we prepared and have stuff we wanted to do. But there was this odd freedom. No, I'm saying that wasn't the line or anything. It's like
we prepared and we
had
had stuff to talk
stuff
about.
to say, but there was a weird freedom with it, which was unique. And we let a lot of people in. Like breaking news, I kind of let people into my world, which is kind of messed up a little bit.
Yeah.
My idiosyncrasies, and Tim has less idiosyncrasies than I do, but radio's very personal that way. You got, as you guys know, you got to put yourselves out there a little bit, or you're not going to get anything back.
Yeah.
And it's risky to do that day in and day out, but it was also fun as hell. It was challenging and fun at the same time.
It is a challenge every day. Radio's tough. Radio's a real everything. I always feel like everything else I do is easy compared to radio, and I don't do with my afternoon show. It's like you're talking for 2 or 3 minutes, and then you get a couple songs.
How many times
off.
an hour do you do the hit?
I think we're talking a grand total, and for pop radio, it's a lot. It's like 10 minutes an hour.
Yeah, that is a lot.
But for you guys, you're talking 45 minutes an hour between the two of you, right? I mean, isn't that what the fan clock
Yeah,
looks
the radio,
like?
Radio was 40. By the time we left, it was 42 minutes.
That's
We had 2 8-minute breaks, I think, is what we had.
that's tough, and I don't think people realize how
calls.
hard that is.
No calls.
No calls too.
Yeah, but there's 2 of us.
True.
When he would enjoy doing the show alone. When I was there alone, I was like, I hate this.
Yeah.
Like I'll take calls. Let's do anything.
But I don't want him to give off the impression he wasn't good at hosting alone, because
But it's just not natural.
Yeah.
Who talks for 42 minutes?
I do it all the time. I commute
Actually,
I commute
now
from
that I think
Mississauga
about
every
it,
day. No one's better at talking to myself than me.
I've oftentimes tried to convince him to do a podcast, but I just know he won't work any more than he really has to.
Right. Yeah.
So that we could
Fuck
get that
that.
feel back of the radio.
So you guys, do you think you'll ever be able to do both?
We were asked to do both.
Yeah.
Yep. We were asked to do both.
It'd be a lot. That'd be a lot.
No, and it was presented as such. Yeah, there was respect for it, definitely, when it was pitched.
I don't remember that.
It wasn't in the air for long, because I think I made a face, but I would die, but it's doable.
Right. Fair enough.
You can do 3 hours in a 2-hour TV show and then just hate the world, but do you want to hate the world?
How much of a score tonight remains in Tim and Sid in this arc?
Or Sid and Tim.
No, Sid and Tim didn't end well. Didn't end well.
Neither will Tim and Sid. Let's be honest.
Like how much from the
So
podcast?
you're saying we're Revenge of the Sith, regardless of what we do here. Like, the end of that movie is how we're gonna end.
I just watched the Mike and Mad Dog 30 for 30.
How
know,
great
right?
is that?
Yeah, no, I watched that. I
We are
watched
huge
that.
Mike Francesa fans. Do you guys follow
yeah?
his the Twitter account that just puts out his funny moments, the moments that
I've
he,
not
messes
followed,
up?
but yeah.
Or when he falls asleep on air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or when people call, I guess people just because he takes calls all show, right? So people call in and ask him about the Devils or whatever.
4
and
hours of radio,
He
that guy
hangs
does.
up on them. He hangs up
Yeah.
like he's just
All
like,
right.
I don't know anything about hockey. That is my favorite part about that documentary, and I was telling Steve about this, and if you haven't seen the Mike and Mad Dog
still need to.
30 for 30, you got to. My favorite moment was they talk about the first day they walk into the studio, right? And these guys don't even like each other to start.
They don't know each other.
They don't know each other.
Yeah.
They sort of worked on the station, but they're like, eh. And then they talk about the power chair moment. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Where Mike Francesa sits down in the power chair, And Mad Dog's like upset about this. And what was amazing about this is it's just a fucking chair.
Yeah.
But he's mad about it for years.
But to some people, it's not a chair.
It's not a chair. It's the power chair.
Says the guy who would want the power chair.
Whatever. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal, but I want that fucking chair.
We a true story. When we sat down for our first show at the Fan, when we had moved over, there was a power chair that Bob McCown sits in.
Bobcats, yeah.
And Sid and I walked into the studio, and we purposely left the middle chair alone and sat on both sides of
Out
the
of
middle
respect.
chair. And
But out of respect for each other, too.
yeah. But the boss was like, "Who's sitting in that chair?" Like he
I'm like,
really wanted to see who was
Don
sitting.
Collins. It was like he was the Emperor of Rome watching, and he wanted to see a fight to the death. And Tim and I are like, we're not doing this.
Nobody's sitting in that chair.
We're not guests only.
Yeah.
That's it.
When you walk into a station with a legend like that, and you guys are the young guys, and you're the up-and-comers, and everybody's talking about you, and this guy's been there for 20 years and, syndicated and been here since, like, day one. He launched the station. Is there any sort of like awe moment, like, oh my God, we're leading into his show now? Like, this is crazy. I grew up with this guy.
Well, I think after our first show on air, and I think, what was the show that day? We had Neon Phaneuf, we had Brian Colangelo, and I think we asked Brian 2 questions, and it went for like 25 minutes.
Brian likes to talk.
Love Brian. But then the plan was stay for Bob's first segment at 4. So we're done, and there's some euphoria that you get through the first one, so we're done. The plane is taken off. And then for me personally, just Tim and I were on the same side, and in hindsight, it was kind of funny. It was like we were kind of huddling next to each other in a corner, not out of fear, but out of something else. And Bob sat in the chair, and we just kind of looked at each other for like 30 seconds, and no one really knew what to say. And it was just, to me, that was an interesting moment. Because like that's an icon. That's an icon. That's a guy I've been listening to my entire life.
It's like being in a dream, right?
A little bit.
Like, this is silly.
A little bit. There was a lot of those moments when we started.
I was gonna say out of like you were sure, like it wasn't out of fear. It was out of reverence. Like
That's
this is
the word I should use.
This is for both of us. It was really easy because for me it was really easy because I love this guy. Like he's really good at the craft. And this guy is like a legend, and we're sitting there on his show, and then we got to do roundtables and all those things. And the funny thing is, even though we made the jokes about Jay and Dan earlier, there's still that, like, I have that same sort of respect for them and what they do.
Absolutely.
And maybe even people will try and turn whatever we said at the start into something that we don't. Same thing with McCown. Like, when we sat down there, even though he crushes us on the radio now, there's an, like, off air, I'll talk to him. There's a reverence that I have because he's done it for 25 years and done it at the top of the game for 25 years. And I think Francesa is probably the only other guy that you could talk about that has done that.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
There's 2 guys in North America that have done it. McCowan's one of them. So it's like, when we were on that show, I never thought I would do radio, period. So to be on that show, I was like excited. Like that was awesome for me to sit there and just go like, and that look that we gave each other was like, holy shit, we're sitting on McCowan's show. Like it's 2 kids who grew up. Like I was on Yonge Street when the Jays won the World Series. Like that was the launching pad for McCown and the Fan. It was just like a very cool moment in your career.
And in terms of Bob and Jay and Dan and other guys who kind of put themselves out there, who've done it for a while, who have personality, or who take risks, I respect anyone who does that.
Especially
I think
in
there's a lot
sports.
of people playing it safe in our fucking business. I really believe that. I think there's a lot of people who are a little uncomfortable to be themselves and are amazing at it, but will never see it. And Tim and I were lucky where we came from personality in a way. Like that was our base. That's always been our base. But to do what Jay and Dan does is not easy. To do what Bob does is not easy.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of risk. And there are a lot of people who have failed in this business trying to do that in medium to small markets. So anyone who does it at this level and isn't safe, I have nothing but respect for those people. Because it is at times not easy being the risk takers. Right. Like I don't want to make myself a martyr.
But sometimes it's from
easy to do in
ignorance.
this business.
Sometimes it's from ignorance where you're just like, this is how I'm going to be. This is my personality. This is it. And then you realize, oh crap! Like all these guys that do this get fired. Right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like all these guys who lay it out on the line either are really good at it or get fired really quickly and are moving on.
sometimes you try something and it sucks, like the Dangle dial, for example.
Hold on.
No, but what you
Hold
did,
on.
but what
Who
you
said the Dangle dial sucks?
Most of Toronto, I'm pretty sure, and Adam actually, yes.
Two things I love about the Dangle dial.
Okay.
One, you. Two, how pissed Blair gets while it's running. I am a huge fan of the Dangle dial for various reasons. Never
You like
stop
pissing
doing
off
it.
Blair.
There is a-
that's dead.
What? It's dead?
Oh man, that's been gone
Since
for a long
when?
time.
I'll call Julie right now. We'll figure it out.
Whatever.
She stopped taking my calls a long time ago.
That was Don's baby, and
Well,
No,
that's-
But you just
it's
did.
gone.
You just did your thing. Like that's why I respect you. You just did your thing, and then all these people were like, "Hey, we like it," and then the bosses were forced to go, "Holy shit, what is this? What are all these people looking at? Why are they?" And then all of a sudden, you're on Sportsnet, like doing the exact same thing, which is amazing. You put yourself out there, people enjoyed it, and here you are.
Which people said you'd never do. People told you you'd never do that. And
What do you mean?
people would say it in comments. People would say it in people.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't do it the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would never work for whatever.
Blank. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I feel like because I'm an outsider, right? I'm not a sports guy, or I didn't come in as a sports guy. I've always been a sports fan.
You're a decent sports guy, though.
Well, I appreciate
You're not-
that.
you're
If
not
I
an
can be
outsider.
decent, that's good. Good right now. I'd like
Dangle's
to be better.
arm goes
Thanks,
over the
but,
shoulder
I've only
of
been doing
Adam
this since
Wylde.
2013.
Adam Wylde
Yeah.
looks
But for-
uncomfortable while his arm goes over the shoulder.
For the
But there's
two
a
of-
nice smile going back to their high school
They both
days.
have tight T-shirts. And
Steve wore a V-neck to accentuate his traps.
But the thing about the two of you is that I feel like when we started doing this show, we felt like, oh my God, we have license to do this because you've done it, because you had done it, because you were not afraid to be yourselves. You did a podcast. It went somewhere, and then we did a podcast, and it was kind of like it took off for us relatively quickly as well, and not in the same way. But I think what's been amazing is watching you guys continue to do the two of you the way you've always sort of done the two of you, and it breaks every sort of mold that sports is supposed to be, which is serious and buttoned down and whatever. And what I remember, like when I watch you guys, and we watch it, we have it in the studio every day in the afternoon.
really?
Yeah, we have it
Really?
on in the studio
no
every
sound
day.
on, he's
No
like-
sound, but
Why,
I'm
yeah.
watching.
Best sounding. That's the best sounding the show ever sounds. You're muted.
But
Just because we're so incredibly good looking.
well, of
That's it.
course, but
And my nice ass.
Yeah, it's his ass, yeah.
it's not a shelf.
I'm
Sorry.
interrupting him.
though.
Sorry.
No,
Please
it's all
continue.
good. As I
I'm
said, it's not a shelf ass. Is all I'm saying.
It's not as good.
Damn cakes,
You can't
though.
rest a margarita on it.
No.
So.
Continue, old IKEA butt. Let's go.
I just feel like it's amazing that you've been able to do that, and it gives us kind of like hope, like, hey, it's not the worst thing in the world that we're not super serious, because sports are supposed to be fun, right? Aren't they?
But I think, where I agree with you. I think you're bang on. I think where I get my back up sometimes is people just want you to be that 24/7. And I think Tim and I are a very nuanced show in that regard. I think we enjoy having enjoyable moments. I think
We enjoy having
that
enjoyable
was
moments.
that was like an old political way of saying it.
We should put that on a T-shirt, by the way.
And we,
We enjoy having enjoyable
and
moments.
we,
like
and we
that,
also
yeah.
enjoy having non-enjoyable moments. What? No, I'm just saying there's layers to both of us in a big way, and I just I think that has to be acknowledged.
You could just say that people
Nope, I'm
don't
not
get
gonna
it.
say it. Nope.
People don't get it.
No, everyone
people
gets
think
it.
it's just like
Everyone
shits and
gets it.
giggles all the time.
Everyone in this building
And-
watches the show all the time.
and the same we had it the whole way, and you guys are going to get the same thing, and you've probably felt it, where it's like you do something that people like, but they don't realize that people are tuning in because every one of those posts, every one of those shows actually has content that comes from knowledge, and they don't care. They just want the viral
30-second clip of you holding up the...
woman scores a goal, big game, ice dancing rant, whatever the hell it is. But there's like 100 shows, and if those were the only moments, no one would ever listen, because it would just be boring.
There's gotta be more
Like,
to
there's
base
got to be
than
more
that.
than that. So
Yeah.
what he's
You would
saying
just
is,
pass out.
yeah,
My blood pressure would be through the roof.
Well, how do you escape like a typecast? Because it's like you said earlier. It's like, hey, you haven't been screaming. Like, I've been getting that a lot lately. Like, oh, I thought you'd just be screaming the entire time.
I heard it on the podcast, so I was just breaking your balls.
Oh.
But
Hey, I'm honored.
Yeah.
I said
but-
that to you before. There was someone recently who said that.
Chris Johnson, but I think he was kidding.
Yeah.
I don't think he was kidding. He told me after he wasn't kidding.
Well, he wasn't
He told me he
kidding.
was pretty serious about
are
it.
you a yell? Like, this is what I really want to know, because do you yell when you watch the game?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm. It's very difficult to get my attention, but watching hockey, like, Jesus, all I can focus on, and I'm yelling and screaming.
So my dad played minor pro and knew a lot about hockey, and I had to sit and watch every game in silence.
No.
Like that was our thing, and I to this day can't watch big games in bars because I can't stand the guy like Dangle yelling at the
Really?
TV.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And if he doesn't know, what he's talking about, it makes me
I've seen you
even
in a
more
bar. You keep it
mad.
together in a bar. I've seen you in a.
I keep it together, but there.
So you're sitting at the TV going, "What are you doing, Mironov?"
Something like that, yeah.
Why you gotta bring Mironov
For me,
into
it was Corey Cross.
No, it was more Caberlet.
Corey Cross.
What are you
Oh,
doing,
Caberlet a
Caberlet?
little bit.
Oh, Caberlet.
Yeah.
Caberlet.
Yeah, Check Gardner. I'm like, be better, I know you can. And then he was- yeah.
You know what was the best was the Randy Carlisle years because his wife and back then
No one ever says that.
that was the only good
No
thing
one
the
ever
Randy
says.
Carlisle.
Fans.
Yeah.
I used to get videos from his wife. Like, are you watching the game right now? And I'd be like, yeah. And I'd be at my girlfriend's house or something like that. And it would just be, she'd just send me a video, and it'd be Steve going, "Holy fuck!" And he'd like throw something across the room.
Because that was my question. How do you stay friends with a guy in high school and who are the Leafs when you're in high school? Like,
They were the
Ryan McCabe, but
Ray
the
Croft.
bad one.
Raycroft.
Raycroft, Tosca.
so post can opener McCabe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jason
Raycroft dealt for. So you are just losing your mind,
Yeah, past due Tucker, past due Domi,
right?
approaching the end and completely alone Matt Sundin.
Yeah, because that's why you're loved. And yet, if you sat beside me, I would want to pull your shirt over your head and just start pounding if I was watching a game with you.
I can keep it together in public, but the one game, the clinch game against Pittsburgh this year, the second last game.
Yeah.
Me and my wife were supposed to go to a party, and I almost didn't go. Like it was the last minute. She's like, just come," because I'm like, I know there's gonna be people there, and like one of them's bringing a kid, and like I'm just gonna scream, and like it's puck goes in off Gardner in the third period, and I'm just like holding onto the couch like it's a ride.
By the way, it had to be Gardner. That
Had
puck
to be
went in.
Gardner. It wasn't even his fault.
Has to be
Wasn't even
the guy. No, but it was like when McCabe scored on our own net against Buffalo.
Had to be McCabe.
It had to be McCabe.
Couldn't have been anyone else. It had to be McCabe.
Anyway.
Can I say something?
Sorry. Yes.
Before we wrap up, I just don't know when we're wrapping up. So
Yeah,
I just
we're wrapping
wanna-
up here soon.
I want to say this now. I think you are fantastic, Dangle. I think you are great.
See, here comes mine.
Yep. I'm giving him another one, but I'm going to do this for you.
What do you mean by another one?
All kidding aside, with the drunken incident with Jesse at TIFF, you're fantastic. You put in the work. Again, what people don't acknowledge and don't talk about, and maybe it's typecasted, but you put in the work.
Editing those
you
things.
You were a hustler. You edit them. One of my favorite moments from you, though, when you were not yelling, was when you were in the bowels of the CBC for the draft lottery when the Leafs got the first pick, and you were periscoping it.
Oh yeah.
And it was so obvious how your head wanted to literally explode in the moments leading up to it. But you were like, I want to keep. We're in the CBC. It was like golf. We're in the CBC building.
Damien Cox is down the
Damien
hall.
Cox is down the hall. I just passed Jeff Merrick. I need to keep it cool. They're going to take my swipe card away. And then when it hit, it was just beautiful because we all knew you wanted to lose everything inside of you, and you didn't. And that was great. I just want to say I'm a huge fan of yours, and you're fantastic.
Oh gosh.
Wow.
And Wylde, I said the thing about you, Jesse. You were drunk last year, and I won't forget it. That was really inappropriate, honestly.
I apologize.
Really just embarrassed a lot of people at Rogers.
Poor Jesse. Jesse's the only one that had the balls to come up here.
Yeah. Well,
I just wanted to say that before we wrapped up.
You were one of the first people who, when I got my job at Sportsnet, made me feel like, okay, this is actually going to work. I think because I got the job in September.
How did you feel when you first got here? Like, what was the feeling?
Terrified. Like I looked at it as a different opportunity. So because it was behind the scenes, right? It was that prep sheet that I annoyed you guys with every morning that no one read.
I read them all.
Oh, I hope
I
so.
didn't.
He's lying through his teeth.
But I sent that thing to 1,100 people throughout the country.
I guarantee you in St. Thomas, Ontario.
Current radio station really appreciate it.
yeah.
I think some of them did.
Yeah.
But some mornings I got a lot of emails like, "Thank you, you really saved my ass this morning." But like towards the end of the season, I made a huge mistake. I made all the links bit.ly so I could see how many people clicked them. It made me feel very bad.
Yeah. Some things you should never just know.
You should never know.
Just let it go.
Yeah.
It was very bad. But no, it was behind the scenes. I looked at it as a fresh start. I was tired of getting laid off. It was just starting to get to the point where people were starting to ask questions about, oh, so you also do these videos? Like, can we maybe feature them on the website? And then the friggin' Nashville game happened, the 9-2 Nashville game. And I go completely berserk, head blows up. I wake up to tweets that a few clips were on 680 that morning. And I had to walk into the Sportsnet offices. And this guy friggin' stands up and just goes, Steve Dangle, ladies and gentlemen. Steve Dangle.
Oh, me? Sorry, you mean I did that?
Yeah, you did that.
I forgot the story.
You're this
I did
guy.
that?
You're this
Oh,
guy.
I regret doing that immediately. I fucked that one up.
But like that morning, I was like, oh, I think it's going to be okay. You were there too.
There you
just
go.
Didn't stand up.
I didn't do anything. I was like, who the hell is this guy?
Sorry, so
You feel like it's gonna be okay.
I made another human feel good.
Yes.
See?
Believe it or not.
That can happen. I pointed at McCown for those listening on podcast. McCown believes I have the spawn of the devil. And there are days he's right.
Well, guys,
Racist towards Portuguese.
I know we both
Yeah, I've heard that
have we
before.
both have shows that we got to get to after this, so we want to wrap it up. But I hope this
I
is
don't,
not the.
so let's keep going.
I hope this isn't the last time because I could sit here and the next time we should have like mid hockey season so we can actually go through some real events because it's kind of a quiet time right now.
Yeah.
But it's been so awesome to finally get this together, and thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
The power is strong in this podcast and what you guys are doing. So anytime I felt the power when you said we were coming on, which is very cool.
Yeah.
Because I remember when we first got like the Twitter universe to speak on our behalf, and it was awesome when they did that because it got us other jobs. And then when you guys tweeted out that we were coming on the show, I was like, oh,
I didn't
These-
get that
these
much
guys,
traction
the force
on
is
Twitter.
strong
The
with these
force is
guys.
strong. I hadn't
Yeah.
had that much traction since I said the Raptors were going to lose to the Bucks after the third game.
You've had one more. I'm so sorry. One more. What's it like on a platform as big as yours when you goof? Because
It is what it is.
The big one for you that keeps
It is what it is.
still gets retweeted today was right before the Jays got like Tulo and Price. You're like, this team's cooked.
Oh, I said they should fold the franchise. Like every day. It was that run was quite interesting on social media because there was quite the breadth of douchebag tweets that led up to it, and then they make this crazy ridiculous run. So here's the one thing I've never deleted a tweet. I'll say that. Maybe I should, but I've never deleted a tweet. If you tweet it, it is what it is. I've stopped tweeting entirely. I don't do it anymore.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it got ridiculous. But and then I realized, what am I don't like. I have a show with this guy.
But
If
that's
I
the
could just give
guts. We could sit here and do, and you guys know it. You could sit here and do a show where you just talk back and forth, but it's not that entertaining. So to have someone who has guts to say something and then sit there as I grill him on what he just said, like, I don't know if people understand how tough that is because you get that blowback from a lot of people who want to say you were dead wrong on this, and they'll never say you were completely right on this.
It just had Andrew Walker,
Yeah, so-
who just went out to Vancouver for Sportsnet 650. Someone dug up
Pass it to Bullis. Dug it up.
a tweet about the Canucks and what was it about Milan Lucic? I can't remember the context. Forgive me, I'm forgetting
It
it.
was basically like,
But-
I'm glad the Bruins won in 2011.
Because he was working in
He
Calgary.
was wearing a Calgary,
Yeah.
but some douchebag living in his mom's basement goes
Wow.
up and down
Hey.
the feed.
But-
Sorry,
Hey.
Dangle. Sorry. Who lives above ground in their own shitty cinema house that they use for a horror film in
In Oshawa?
Oshawa. But like that was a huge. It just got ridiculous like that. Like I once tweeted, and I still laugh at this about the Jays. This is JPR and CB's team. Once every 6 months, I get it back because I haven't deleted it.
Right.
But once every 6 months, I get it. He had like 2 home runs that night.
He
It
did.
seemed like a good tweet at
Was
the
that
time.
his first game where he had
No,
like...
not the first game. But
No.
like he would had a run before he yelled at Zani and they ran him out of town.
Right.
But anyway, social media is just it's ridiculous. But I appreciate Tim saying that. But the Walker incident was one of like thousands you can bring.
Sometimes I just want to defend them. Like I've told them a couple times where I'm like, and then you meet the people who actually say it, and then they want to shake your hand, and it's not the same.
I gotta be honest.
You know what I mean?
I was
Like,
at a pitch talks because you're a puck talks tonight.
Yes.
I was at a pitch talks, and someone who had been up my ass, who I will not name, I ran into on social media, all over me. And I went with Azzo,
our old producer.
old producer. I go, Azzo, watch this. So I walk right over, and I tap. And I go, how you doing, man? He's like, good, good. Yeah. Very sheepishly. And I'm like, good to see you, man. And I walk back.
And that's it.
This guy was buying me beers by the end of the night because I was cool with it. But fuck it. I will never forget that shit. Mm-hmm. And most people, the point of the story is, people on social media are fucking cowards.
Wait.
I'll tell you right now. They are fucking cowards.
Some.
No, 100% of the people.
Every one of them, including everybody in the room.
Aside, hold on.
Everybody in the room, everybody listening.
Hold on.
School kids.
Hold on.
Your mom.
Everyone.
Look into that camera.
Let's keep the mothers out of this.
Your grandma. Your
The
nonna.
mothers out of this.
Actually, my nonna's not on. My nonna's not.
If your nonna was on Twitter, that'd be the best.
That would be fantastic.
But everyone except for
I'm
hockey
opening an
analysts
account.
and
Nonna's
CNN
tweets
are just cowards. Everyone.
Right.
See, it shouldn't rile up that much, but
No, but my point is
the amount
just
of times
like,
I've been looking at my phone and
you
just
know,
going,
you know,
person,
Oh,
we
yeah.
all
you
know,
catch this fate.
we all know that these people, when they come up to your face, are just fucks, and they're not going to say anything.
no, but you can't say that because now someone's going to come up to you
Let him.
and act like,
I'm doing my
hey, what did you
I'm
say?
doing
on
my traps with Dangle tomorrow. Let him.
Just bring him with you.
No.
Promo right now. Oh, yeah.
Honestly, Jesse, you're the straw that stirs the strength. These guys are terrible, and you do a fantastic job.
I believe that.
I want to get
I
that
believe
one.
that so
Absolutely
it's
is.
true.
You're fantastic. So
Yeah,
thanks.
thank
It's
Hey,
a
guys.
pleasure.
Somebody finally.
Thank you so much for coming on, guys. We will do this again.
Continue
Anytime.
success with this.
Yeah,
Your nonna is a coward, no matter what you say.
Follow the guys on Twitter at Steve_Dangle, at Adam WYLDE, and at Jesse Blake.
The Steve Dangle Podcast. Brought to you by Panago Pizza. Order at panago.com and stuff your face with deliciousness.